So imagine this. We are 3 girls, drunk off our ass, surrounding a phone with a Google search for meatloaf. How the fuck did we get here? Well, I'm 19, and kind of in the same way that I'm trying on different hairstyles, I'm trying on different boyfriends. I just finished my last relationship with the nice guy. You know, the guy who's just nice. That's pretty much fucking it. There's no passion there, so I break up with him. I'm trying out something completely different, the chaotic, artsy, will they, won't they kind of love. His name is Vincent. You've met him? Like, you can come after, so. He's left quite an impression. Oh, man. And Vincent has been leading me on for some time now. Apparently, maybe it was with you. And no, yeah. So I accidentally kissed him while I was in my previous relationship. It's not a story about that. Let's move on so you can care about me and think I'm still cool. The problem is, Vincent is into another girl. Her name is Laurence. And if you couldn't already tell by her name, the bitch is perfect. So, we all know one. So I'm kind of waiting for Vincent to realize that Laurence is perfect on paper, but I'm the right one for him, you know? Because I've watched too many romantic comedies, and I haven't realized yet that that ain't fucking gonna happen. So I'm upset, and I call my best friend Chantal, and I'm just like, why won't he like me? And she's like, well, come over, and we'll have a wine and wine evening. Yes, that's wine W-I-N-E and wine W-H-I-N-E. Basically, we drink and bitch with a sad playlist. It's awesome. So you should get a little idea of who Chantal is. Chantal has been my best friend for about 3 years up to that point. We like to say that before we became friends, I had a giant broomstick up my ass. Yeah, my idea of fun was writing an essay. My favorite social media was LinkedIn. I can safely say she's done her job. Now my favorite hobby is drinking. So, yeah, let's just say that it's gotten to a point where most nights I drink and puke and end up on her cold bathroom floor. It's awesome. And Chantal's also the reason why I've dyed my hair manic panic pink. She has the same color. We match. It's awesome. On this particular evening, we're whining with Ellie, who is Chantal's bad influence. So we're going through a lot of alcohol, and I'm bitching about Vincent, and Chantal's heard this story like 1,000 times, so she's just, going through the Nicola Lalou. And Ellie, who's hearing most of the story for the first time, is like, well, why don't you just, meatloaf him? I'm pretty confused because I thought meatloaf was a noun, and she's using it as a verb, so I'm gonna need some explanations. And she's like, it's pretty simple. If you meet a guy who smells like Dracar Noir and you need to block him for some reason, here's the way to do it. It's the best way. So you go through any form of private chat. My favorite is Facebook Messenger. And you just type a simple text, like, hey. You don't need to put like a ton of Y's. You don't even need to capitalize. Who cares? Just hey. When the person sees your message and replies, you send them a picture of a meatloaf. I'm not done. Before they get a chance to respond, you block them. I'm not done. Then you block them on everything they can contact you with, including your phone, so they have no way of contacting you. And I'm like, okay, but why a meatloaf? And Ellie's like, who fucking cares what you send? The point is, they'll be bamboozled, they'll be fucked, and you'll have had the last laugh. And I'm like, you guys are evil geniuses. And we get pie up top, and I don't know if it's the Nicola Lalou, but we decide we're gonna fucking do it. So we're on Google Images, And we're like halfway through, I think is our 4th bottle of wine. And we're just going through all of them, and we want to find the best one. You know, we want this truly terrible image. Like, which one is the most plastic, stock-looking image we can find? Like, which one is the creme de la crap, you know? And we finally find it. After what I think was like 45 minutes of search, we decide to go with the first one that we saw in Google Images. There are 2 reasons we decide to do this. The first one is that it truly is the creme de la crap. It's really ugly. And the second reason is because if Vincent decides to Google search it, it's the first one. He can, you see what I'm doing, he can go through an endless deep dive and just always wonder, right? So I'm getting frickin' pined up. I go on Facebook Messenger, I'm getting ready. Hey, immediate scene. Hey, I send in the meatloaf, block him on Facebook, block him on Instagram, block him on LinkedIn, block him on my phone. That's all I have. I don't get Snapchat. I don't. And we just can't stop laughing. I have the last laugh. This is amazing. This is so freaking good. And I just love it so much that it kind of becomes a habit of mine. And Chantal's, okay? So every time we go through a kind of bad breakup, we'll just meatloaf the person. So fucking good, man. Actually, one time, I have this guy who, I didn't manage to like block him fast off of everything, and I think he was catching on to what I was doing, so he texts me before I managed to block him off everything, and he quotes something he said to me during our relationship. Like, he pulls out quotation marks, he skips a line, he signs his name, like he's a fucking boomer or something. Any boomers in the room? So, don't do that. And so I thought that was so bad that I unblocked him. I sent him a second meatloaf, and I blocked him on everything. That deserved 2 meatloafs, ladies and gentlemen. So good. But I never hear from Vincent again, right? And then a few years pass, and one of my friends posts this ad on Facebook, and he's looking for somebody to come on his student radio show. Basically, what they do is they invite, like, post-secondary education students, just in whatever field, and he and his co-host, they interview this person about whatever they want to talk about. The point is just to educate people, because we can't have bachelors and everything, right? And so I'm like, this is really cool. I can talk about poetry. I can plug my open mic, talk about the effect of words on a stage. And I write to them, and they add me in the group chat, and I'm like super psyched, and guess who one of the fucking co-hosts is? It's Vincent! It fucking is. And so I freak out. And I call Chantal, and I tell her about this, and I'm like, what do I do? And she's like, well, just back out. And I'm like, I don't wanna. Like, I wanna do this radio show. So we're racking our heads. We get a Nicola Lalou bottle, and it's important to the thought process. And so she's like, do you think he still thinks about the meatloaf? And I'm like, I sure fucking hope so. And we keep drinking, and then evil genius, she comes up with something, and she goes, if he brings it up, just act like you have no idea what he's talking about, right? If he's like, why the meatloaf? Just be like, what the fuck are you talking about? This makes no sense. I do not like meatloaf. So, right? Evil genius. The dreaded day comes. I'm super nervous because I'm going to be interviewed live on the radio by my ex. Nightmare scenario. That's a nightmare for you all tonight. And I get so nervous, but it actually goes pretty well. Because the first part of the show is an interview, and it's mostly like the other people interviewing me. Vincent doesn't really interact with me much. But then, like, break time comes, and we kind of feel the need to fill in the silence, you know? And I start to talk about the second part of the show. Now, since we were talking about open mic poetry, we thought it would be a really cool idea that I read one of my poems and then try to analyze it. So I decided to read the best poem I had written up to that point, which just so happens to be the poem I wrote when I meatloafed Vincent. Because I'm fucking brilliant. Here's the thing. It's obvious that it's about him. Like, it's not obvious that it's about him. There's no meatloaf in it. But, like, it's obvious that it's about him, you know? And it's so painful. And I think I'm trying to get out of this situation because I'm like, maybe I should read another one because this poem's maybe a little short and, like, there's not much to analyze. It's pretty simple and to the point. And then Vincent chimes in and he's like, hey, worse comes to worse. We'll just talk about related subjects. Like Ethiopia. And I think to myself, Ethiopia, what is he talking about? And then I'm like, is he meatloafing me in person? Is he trying to bamboozle me? And I'm like, I know what. And then we get on with the interview, and he decides to start asking about the context in which I wrote this poem. And he's like, when you read this, when you read it, does it take you back to that moment, to that emotion? And I'm like, I mean, a little bit. The guy this poem's about, I never think about him. Just so that's clear. I mean, except when I read this. And we go through the poem line by line. Now, I wrote this poem in French, and we get to my favorite one, by the way. I wrote this poem in French, and in French we have an expression, vivre d'amour et d'eau fraîche. It means to live off of love and fresh water. It basically means not needing much to live. And I wrote, what did I write? It's a really good poem, I swear. I wrote, since we don't have love and fresh water, we'll live off of friends and alcohol. We talk about how this poem is about, yes, the grieving of a relationship, but we also talk about how when we grieve a relationship, we rarely do it alone. The interview ends, finally. We go our separate ways. Never mentions the meatloaf. Haven't heard from him since. But that's okay. You see, Vincent is a passing figure in my life. However, Chantal's a permanent figure in my life. I have been there for all of her meatloafs, and she has been there for every single one of mine. And hopefully, will keep being there for that terrible dish. You know, there's a saying that goes, bros before hoes. Well, I would like to suggest chicks before dicks. Thanks.